Steel beams groaned like they were about to snap. Sparks rained down from the ceiling as the creature slammed its massive body against the reinforced door again and again. The sound of metal bending under its strength made even the toughest soldiers grip their rifles tighter. Inside the observation deck, a row of officers and scientists stared at the beast through a thick glass wall. Their faces were pale, their hands shaking as they recorded the readings on their consoles. "God help us," whispered one of the scientists. "That thing is a weapon." The creature was unlike anything humans had seen before. Over 9 feet tall, its skin looked like living armor black and scaled with glowing veins of blue. Its jaw opened wide as it roared, revealing rows of diamond-shaped teeth. 4 burning eyes glowed like molten metal, each one locked on its enemies. It had already killed 43 soldiers during the ambush on Vega outpost before they finally trapped it in this containment chamber. It was called a Hunter-class Alpha, a predator bred for war by an alien empire humans barely understood. Now, it was in chains. But the chains were nothing more than a cruel joke. They stretched and snapped every time the monster moved. "Open. Fire if it breaks through," barked General Armin, sweat dripping down his forehead. The soldiers aimed their rifles, but even they knew the truth. Their bullets were useless. If the beast got out, everyone in the base was dead. And then it stopped. The predator froze in the center of the cell, chest heaving, smoke rising from its armored skin. It turned its head slowly, and its 4 eyes locked on a man standing near the glass. Commander Elias Ward. He was calm, almost too calm, as the creature snarled at him. While the others stood back in fear, Elias stepped closer, his boots echoing. In the tense silence, "You're going to get yourself killed," hissed Dr. Varric, one of the xenobiologists. "That thing doesn't think it only kills." Elias didn't answer. His eyes never left the creature. Something in its gaze felt different, not like blind rage, something deeper, something almost intelligent. The predator lunged. The impact shook the entire room. The glass between them groaned like it would shatter. Scientists screamed, and soldiers raised their weapons. The beast slammed its claws against the barrier again and again, teeth snapping just inches from Elias's face. Elias didn't move. He stood there, his heartbeat steady, his eyes locked on its burning gaze. And then he did something no one expected. He spoke. One word, a sound so strange, so alien that it didn't belong in any human language. "Varun." The word rolled off his tongue like a whisper of thunder. It was low, commanding, filled with authority that didn't seem to belong to any human throat. The predator froze. Mid-roar. The room fell silent. Its claws stopped pounding the glass. Its chest rose and fell as it breathed hard, steam curling from its nostrils. Slowly, almost unwillingly, the beast lowered its head. What did you just say?" Dr. Varric stammered, staring at Elias like he'd gone insane. Elias didn't look away from the predator. "A word," he said simply. The creature let out a low rumble, like distant thunder. But it wasn't anger. It sounded almost respectful. Its eyes were still burning, but now they were focused, not wild, not mindless. The soldiers lowered their rifles a fraction. Even the general looked shaken. "How did you know that word?" Varric demanded, voice trembling. Elias finally turned, his head slightly, just enough to speak without breaking eye contact. "From the war records, fragments of their language. I studied them. And that word? It means—" Elias hesitated, his voice soft but firm. "Yield." Gasps filled the observation deck. The beast, chained and covered in wounds, knelt. Slowly until its clawed hands touched the ground. Its head bowed, its breath heavy and hot against the floor. It wasn't snarling anymore. It wasn't roaring. It was listening. Elias stepped closer, placing his palm against the glass. The creature's glowing eyes followed the motion. For 1/10 second, the barrier felt like it might vanish, and the predator could tear him apart in an instant. But at DIDN single quotes T dot instead, the beast pressed its forehead against the same spot. On the glass right, where Elias's hand rested, whispers spread through the room. Fear mixed with awe. General Armin broke the silence. "Commander Ward, what the hell are you doing?" Elias stared at the creature, his voice steady, calm, almost gentle, making it understand. The alarms that had been blaring for the last 30 minutes suddenly fell silent. The predator's breathing slowed. The chains lay slack on the ground. The scientists stared at the readings on their monitors. Heart rate dropping, aggression signals falling, brain activity stabilizing. Something impossible had just happened. And then Elias spoke again, repeating the word softly, Varun. The predator growled low in its throat. But this time, it wasn't a threat. It sounded almost like an answer. For the first time since its capture, the alien predator was calm. And everyone in the room realized something terrifying. It wasn't because of the chains. It wasn't because of the glass dot. It was because of the human who spoke its language. Everyone stared through the thick glass at the predator, which now knelt on one knee like a fallen warrior. Its claws scraped softly against the floor, not in attack, but in submission. Commander Elias Ward's voice had been calm when he said it. That strange, alien word Varun. Just one word, and the beast that had torn through entire squads of soldiers had stopped. Is anyone going to explain what the hell just happened? General Armin barked, breaking the silence. His voice was sharp, but it carried something else. Fear. Dr. Varric pushed his glasses up, his face pale as snow. It responded to him. That's impossible. These things don't follow orders. They don't even understand diplomacy. They're bred for one thing: killing. Elias didn't answer. His eyes stayed locked on the creature. It hadn't moved an inch. Steam rose from its skin, and its glowing blue veins pulsed like liquid fire under armor-like flesh. Its breathing was slow now, almost calm, but its gaze never left him. "Commander," the general snapped again. "What did you say to it?" Elias took a breath, his voice even. "A word I learned from captured logs. Our linguists managed to decode fragments during the First War. It means stop, or maybe something more." "Something more?" Armin growled. Elias didn't. "Look away from the beast. It didn't just stop. Look at it. It's kneeling." The word sent a chill through the room. Kneeling. The word sounded wrong in this context, like trying to describe a hurricane as polite. A predator, one of the deadliest species in the galaxy, kneeling to a human. General Armin turned to his men. "Pull the sedative gas tanks. I want this thing out cold." "No." Elias's voice cut sharp through the air. Everyone turned to him. "No." The general's face reddened. "That thing slaughtered dozens of our people, Ward. You don't give me orders." Elias turned his head slowly, eyes like steel. "If you sedate it now, you lose everything. This is the first time anyone has reached one of them. Do you understand what that means?" Dr. Varric muttered under his breath, still typing on his datapad. "Theoretically, if they can be reasoned with, if there's a chain of command. Enough." "Theories," the general snapped. "If it moves, you shoot to kill." The soldiers raised their rifles again, red laser dots dancing over the predator's massive body. The creature's eyes flicked to them. A low growl rumbled in its throat, like distant thunder. "Stand down," Elias ordered, stepping closer. "To the glass. Do not provoke it." He pressed his palm to the barrier again, slowly, carefully. His voice was steady, calm as stone. "Viron," he said again, The growl stopped instantly. The predator's head lowered farther, pressing against the floor like it was obeying. Its massive shoulders trembled, and its claws dug into the steel ground, but not in rage. It looked almost restrained, like a storm caged by a single command. Everyone in the room froze. "Holy hell," one soldier whispered. Elias's mind raced. It wasn't random. That word wasn't just a command. It carried weight, authority, maybe even cultural meaning. These predators weren't wild beasts. They were soldiers, trained and conditioned to follow orders from a leader they recognized. And now, somehow, he had spoken like one of those leaders. "Commander Ward," Varric said quietly, his voice shaky, "you just gave it a reason to obey." You. The realization hit like a thunderclap. If he could control this predator, even for a moment, humanity's war could change. But that wasn't why Elias felt his chest tighten as he stared at the creature's glowing eyes. It wasn't just obedience. It was something deeper. The way it looked at him, it wasn't mindless submission. It was recognition. Before anyone could process the moment, a sharp alarm blared through the base. Warning lights flashed red. A voice crackled over the comms. "Command to all units. Alien transmission detected. Priority 1 alert. They're coming for their weapon." The room erupted in chaos. Officers shouted. Soldiers scrambled. Screens filled with streams of alien code. General Armin turned to Elias, his face grim. "You've got 24 hours. Ward, either you figure out how to control that thing, or I put a bullet in its head before their fleet arrives." Elias's jaw clenched. His eyes flicked to the predator, still kneeling like a dark mountain at rest. It rumbled softly, eyes locked on him like he was its only anchor in this storm. He stepped closer to the glass, his voice low, almost a whisper. "Varun," he said one last time. The predator let out a deep, slow breath. It wasn't just calm. It wasn't just obeying. It was waiting for his next command. Asterisk. Everyone in the control room went silent. The sound was like a death sentence. The chamber that held the predator was opening, and Commander Elias Ward was walking inside alone. "Ward, stop. That's suicide." General Armin's voice boomed from the comm. His face burned on the screen, but Elias didn't slow. His boots clanged against the metal floor as the heavy blast door groaned upward. He stepped into darkness. The predator stood motionless at the center, its glowing blue veins casting an eerie light across the walls. Chains hung loose around its wrists like broken ornaments. It could snap them any time it wanted. And now, nothing stood between Elias and those claws. The door sealed behind him with a deep thud. For the first time, Elias felt the air shift, the heat of the beast, the smell of scorched metal, the electric tension of raw power. The creature raised its head slowly. Its 4 eyes glowed like twin suns burning in deep sockets. It let out a low growl, the sound vibrating through Elias's bones. The soldiers watching through the glass tightened their grips on their rifles. Some whispered prayers. "Commander," Dr. Varric's voice shook through the comm. "Please tell me you know what you're doing." Elias didn't answer. He took 1 step forward. The predator moved instantly, so fast the eye could barely follow. Its massive body slammed into the floor, claws digging deep grooves into the steel. A roar erupted, shaking the chamber. The sound was pure violence, primal and unstoppable. Elias froze. He didn't reach for a weapon. He didn't run. His voice was calm, steady, cutting through the roar like a blade through fog. "Thy run." The word echoed in the chamber. The predator stopped mid-lunge, inches from his face. Hot breath rolled over Elias like a furnace. Droplets of saliva hissed as they hit the floor. Its claws were spread wide, each one long enough to slice a human in half. Its teeth gleamed inches from his throat. One twitch and Elias would be nothing but blood on the steel. But the predator didn't strike Dot. It stayed there, trembling slightly, as if caught between instinct and something deeper. Its 4 eyes burned into him with an intensity that could crush a weaker soul. Elias spoke again, voice softer this time. "Varun." The predator let out a sound no one expected, a low, vibrating hum. Not a growl, not a roar, something else. Something that almost sounded like a response. Slowly, the beast lowered its head, pressing its jaw against the floor in front of Elias's boots. Its claws curled inward, away from him. From the observation deck, gasps filled the air. Someone whispered, "It's Boeing." Elias's heart pounded, but his face stayed calm. He crouched slowly, lowering himself, so his eyes were level with its head. Every nerve in his body screamed at him to run, but he didn't. Instead, he stretched out his hand, slow, careful, deliberate. The predator's breath burned against his skin as his fingers hovered over its armored crown. One wrong move and his arm would be gone. He touched it. The surface was rough, warm, almost like living stone pulsing with heat. A deep vibration hummed beneath the skin, like a war drum inside a mountain. The predator didn't flinch. It stayed perfectly still. Its massive body lowered in submission. Elias's throat tightened. He wasn't looking at a mindless beast anymore. This was something else, something proud, disciplined, chained by instincts, but still capable of choice. And for some reason, it had chosen him. "Commander," Marek's voice cracked through. The cum, sharp and frantic. "Readings are off the charts. Its neural activity is spiking. What are you doing to it?" Elias ignored him. His eyes stayed locked on the predator. He could feel its heartbeat through his palm. And in that strange silence, he spoke a second word, another fragment he remembered from old war logs. Rancor. The predator stiffened, a deep shudder running through its massive frame. Then, slowly, it turned its head, pressing the armored ridge of its skull into his hand, almost like an animal seeking acknowledgement. The room beyond the glass exploded in chaos. "What the hell does that mean?" Armin barked. Elias whispered the answer. "It means, I claim you." Before anyone could react, alarms blared again. Screens flashed crimson. A voice cut through the noise. Enemy fleet entering orbit. Alien boarding pods inbound. The base shook as the first blast hit. Lights flickered. Sirens screamed. Elias glanced back at the predator. Its 4 eyes locked on his, and for the first time, he saw it clearly. Not just a weapon, not just a killer, a soldier, waiting for a commander. He took a step back. The predator rose, towering over him like a living shadow, chains snapping free as it flexed its claws. Elias whispered the command once more, his voice steady even as the walls trembled around them. "Vairan." The beast let out a roar that shook the entire base, but it wasn't rage anymore. It was war. Asterisk, the first explosion ripped through the corridor. The entire base shook like a giant had struck it with its fist. Lights flickered. Sirens wailed. Then came the sound of claws. Not from the predator, these were different. Multiple sets, fast, coming closer. "Enemy breach detected," shouted a voice over the intercom. "Boarding units in Section C." Section C, right outside the predator's containment chamber. Through the glass, soldiers scrambled, weapons ready. Doors slammed shut, sealing hallways. But they all knew the truth. The aliens weren't here to fight. They were here for the Fangborn, their perfect predator. Elias stood frozen for half a second. Then he turned to the beast beside him. The predator towered over him like a living mountain, its glowing veins pulsing with energy, as if it sensed what was coming. "Varan," Elias said softly. The predator rumbled deep in its throat, and moved toward the blast door like an unstoppable storm. Chains that had held it snapped loose, falling to the floor like broken bones. Outside, shadows moved. Dark shapes crept past the glass, alien warriors with curved armor and energy blades. Glowing like molten fire, the blast door exploded inward. Elias dove as heat and metal shards tore through the room. Soldiers opened fire, beams of plasma lighting up the chaos. The alien troops roared in their harsh language, storming in like a tidal wave. Elias rolled behind a console, heart hammering. He grabbed his rifle, but before he could fire, a sound split the air, a roar so deep and violent it felt like the sky was breaking. The Predator launched forward like a missile. It smashed into the first alien with such force that the warrior's body bent like metal under a hammer. Blood sprayed across the walls. Claws tore through armor. Teeth ripped through bone. Every movement was a blur of speed and death dot, and then one alien broke through the chaos. A massive brute with twin plasma axes. It swung hard, and one blade sliced across the Predator's flank. Blue blood exploded in the air, glowing like molten light. The Predator roared in pain, a sound so raw it made Elias's stomach twist. No! Elias leaped forward, firing his rifle at the brute. Bolts of plasma slammed into its chest, dropping it to the floor. He turned and saw the Predator stumble. Its massive body shuddered as blood poured from the wound. Without thinking, Elias ran to it. Bullets and plasma fire zipped past, but he didn't stop. He skidded to his knees beside the beast, hands pressing hard against the gash. The blood burned like acid against his gloves, but he didn't care. "Stay with me," he muttered. "Stay with me, damn it." The Predator growled softly, not at him, but at the enemy. Even half bleeding, it tried to rise, shielding him with its body. "Don't you dare," Elias whispered, his voice breaking. "You're not dying on me. Not now." More aliens stormed in, but the Predator lunged, ripping two in half with a single swipe. Blood dripped from its jaws. Its body shook. Yet it fought like a storm-given flesh dot in the chaos. Elias shouted the word again. "Varan!" The Predator froze for a heartbeat. Its four eyes locked on his. Something passed between them, something Elias couldn't name. Loyalty, trust, a bond sealed not by chains, but by choice. The beast let out one last thunderous roar, spinning like a whirlwind of claws and teeth. Aliens fell in pieces. The survivors fled, their armor glowing with warning lights as they dragged wounded soldiers out. The base went silent except for alarms and the sound of blood dripping from claws. Elias dropped to the floor, breathing hard. The Predator stood over him like a battered titan. Its wound pulsed blue, leaking strange light across the steel. Slowly, it lowered its head, pressing its massive skull against his chest. Elias froze. The weight nearly crushed him, but he didn't move. He just let it rest there, feeling its heat, its ragged breath. And then, something unexpected happened. The Predator made a sound, a deep, low rumble. Not a growl, not a roar. It sounded almost soft, like a voice breaking through centuries of silence. Elias swallowed hard. He whispered, voice shaking but firm, "I'm not your master. I'm your friend." The Predator blinked slowly, its glowing eyes dimming like fading embers. Then its claws curled inward, and it collapsed with a crash that shook the floor. "Medics!" Elias roared. "Now!" As soldiers rushed in, the Predator's massive form lay still, its blood pooling like a river of blue fire. Elias pressed harder on the wound, teeth gritted. "You're not dying," he whispered again. "Not after this." But before the medics reached him, the base lights flickered, and the alarms changed. Warning: enemy supercarrier in orbit. Planetary. Annihilation imminent. The war wasn't over. It was about to get worse. Asterisk. The room was chaos. Sparks rained from shattered lights, alarms wailed, and smoke rolled across the floor like a creeping fog. Soldiers shouted orders as medics knelt beside the massive alien body, struggling to stop the glowing blue blood that poured from its flank. Elias was on his knees, his hands still pressing against the wound. His gloves were burned through, his skin blistered and stinging from the predator's acidic blood, but he didn't move. His jaw was set like iron, his eyes locked on the creature's 4 dimming eyes. "Stay with me," he whispered again. His voice shook, but his grip never faltered. "You hear me? Stay with me?" And then it happened. The predator's chest rose slowly, painfully. Its jaws parted, and from deep inside came a sound, not a roar, not a growl, but something broken and raw. A single word formed from a throat not meant for human speech. "Commander." The word cut through the chaos like a blade through smoke. Elias froze. Around him, medics stared in shock, their faces pale as ghosts. Did it just speak? Dr. Varric stammered, his voice cracking. The predator's voice rumbled again, soft but filled with strange weight. "Commander, Varun." The sound was deep, almost mournful, like a mountain whispering before it falls. Elias's chest tightened. He leaned closer, his lips trembling as he spoke. You understand me?" The beast blinked slowly, the glow in its eyes flickering like dying stars. Then, in a voice that was more breath than sound, it spoke again. Understand more than words. The medics tried to pull Elias back, but he shoved them off. He lowered his head until his forehead almost touched the creature's, his voice fierce and urgent. "Tell me what that means. Viron, why does it matter?" The predator's throat vibrated, its claws twitching weakly. "Not stop," it rasped. "Not yield. Then what?" Elias demanded. The answer came in fragments, each one shattering everything Elias thought he knew. Veyron, old word, oath, to kneel. Only for one blood, royal. Leader, Elias's heart slammed against his ribs. Royal bloodline, commanders of their kind. And somehow, when he spoke that word, it recognized him as one of them. No, as its chosen master. "Impossible," Varric muttered, backing away. This is genetic imprinting, or quiet." Elias snapped, his voice sharp as a blade. His eyes never left the predator. "You're saying you swore yourself to me?" The predator's breath shuddered out. "Swore. Fight, die, for you?" Elias's throat tightened. He couldn't explain why, but the words struck deep, heavier than any medal or rank he'd ever earned. This wasn't just obedience. It wasn't mindless programming. It was loyalty. Chosen in blood and battle. The alarms blared louder, drowning everything in red light. The base commander's voice thundered over the intercom. "All hands. Enemy supercarrier in orbit. Planetary strike in 5 minutes. Prepare for evacuation." Panic exploded across the room. Soldiers ran, dragging wounded. Technicians scrambled to purge data cores. But Elias didn't move. He looked down at the predator, his voice steady despite the chaos. "You're not dying here. Not like this." The beast's lips curled, almost like a smile, showing fangs sharp as swords. Then, "Command me." The medic screamed as the predator's massive claws slammed against the floor. With a roar that shook the entire chamber, it dragged itself upright, towering even in its wounded state. Blood dripped in glowing streams, sizzling as it hit the steel. Elias stood with it, his chest heaving, his rifle hanging forgotten at his side. His voice came out low, commanding, carrying the same ancient tone he had used before. "Rancor." The predator's entire body shuddered at the sound. Then slowly, it bowed its massive head not to the alien empire that had created it, but to the human who now spoke their forbidden's tongue. What does that mean? Varric whispered, fear etched across his face. Elias's answer was, cold as steel. It means, I claim it. And now it fights for us. Before anyone could respond, the wall behind them exploded inward. Fire and smoke filled the room as alien warriors stormed in, blades humming with deadly light. The soldiers raised their rifles, but Elias raised his voice. Varun! He shouted, the word ringing like thunder. The predator roared, a sound so violent it seemed to tear the air apart. Its glowing eyes blazed like molten fire as it lunged forward, smashing through the enemy line like a living, battering ram. Armor shattered, blood splashed in glowing arcs. Aliens screamed as they were torn apart, and for the first time in history, the deadliest predator in the galaxy fought for a human. Asterisk the battlefield inside. The base looked like the aftermath of a storm shattered walls, burned steel, and bodies everywhere. Smoke curled from scorched armor as glowing alien blood dripped. Across the floor dot, and in the middle of it all stood the predator bleeding, battered, yet unbroken. Its massive body heaved with every breath, its claws glistening with death. Elias stood beside it, his boots crunching over shattered metal as he stared at the glowing screens flickering across the walls. One message repeated over and over. In. A dozen alien scripts translated in harsh red letters across the monitors. Return the Fangborn, or your species burns. A deep rumble shook the walls. Not from the predator, but from above. The enemy supercarrier had arrived. Its shadow swallowed the sky, and with it came annihilation. Dr. Varric stumbled forward, panic all over his face. Lord, we can't fight. That, we need to hand the creature over. It's the only way to save Earth. Elias turned, his eyes like fire. You saw what they did to our people. You think they'll stop after they get it back? They promised, Varric shouted, his voice cracking. Give it up, and they leave. If we defy them, they'll turn this planet into glass. Elias stared at him for a long, heavy moment. Then his gaze shifted to the predator. The creature's glowing eyes locked on his, unblinking. It didn't speak this time, but it didn't need to. Its entire posture screamed one truth. I am yours. Decide my fate, Commander. General Armin's voice exploded through the comms. I'm giving you a direct order, stand down. Do not engage. Surrender the asset. Elias didn't answer. His fingers clenched into fists. His mind raced through everything he had seen. The chains, the rage, the roar of pain when it shielded him. The broken whisper dash Commander Dot, and then the truth hit him like a blade to the chest dot if he gave the predator. Back it wouldn't be mercy. It would be slavery all over again. A weapon returned to its leash. No. Not while he was breathing. He turned slowly toward the glass wall, where soldiers and officers watched from the safety of the control room. His voice came low, calm, but every word struck like a hammer. Tell the general I'm done following orders. Varric's eyes widened in horror. Ward, don't do this. You're going to start a war we can't win. Elias picked up his rifle, slinging it across his back. His hand brushed the blood-stained armor shard the predator had given him, a sign of trust, an unspoken vow. He looked up at the creature, speaking in the word that had bound him since the first moment. Run. The predator rose slowly, towering over him like a living mountain. Its four eyes burned brighter, its wounds glowing like molten scars. The chains fell from its wrists, clattering to the ground. It stepped forward, claws gouging deep scars into the floor dot, and then it knelt again, not because of defeat, not because of weakness, but because it had chosen, For the first time since humanity crawled into the stars, a predator made for war had picked a human over its own empire. Alarm screamed louder, shaking the floor. Warning, planetary strike in 3 minutes. Through the pay. Smoke-stained glass, Elias saw the fear in the soldiers' eyes. They were ready to fire on him if he moved. He looked straight at them, his voice hard as steel. If you want to stop me, pull the trigger. But know this isn't just a beast. It's a soldier. And right now, it's the only chance we have. The predator growled low, its breath steaming in the cold air above them. The sky tore open as alien landing craft rained fire down on the base. Explosions thundered closer, walls buckling under the force. Elias clenched his jaw. There was no going back now. He stepped closer to the predator and spoke the second forbidden word, the one that sealed the bond forever. Ron Kor. The predator roared so loud the walls cracked. Its chains shattered completely, exploding into shards of metal. The room beyond the glass went deathly still. Soldiers who had seen the impossible before were now staring at something beyond belief, a human standing at the feet of the galaxy's deadliest predator. Commanding it like a king of old. The creature leaned down, its massive head bowing before. Him like a knight kneeling to its lord. Elias touched its armored skull, his voice soft but filled with fire. You're not their weapon anymore. You're mine. And then the doors blew inward. Alien warriors poured through, their eyes burning with vengeance. Elias stepped forward, his voice ringing through the smoke and fire like thunder. Kill. Them all. The predator erupted with a roar that shook the heavens, charging into the flames like a god of war unleashed. The sky burned. Fire rained down from the heavens as the alien supercarrier unleashed destruction upon the planet. The ground shook like an angry beast, buildings collapsing under the weight of energy blasts. The once proud human base was now a graveyard of smoke, steel, and shattered bodies. Elias ran through the chaos, his boots slipping on blood-slick floors, explosions tearing holes in the walls around him. Behind him came the sound that would haunt the galaxy for centuries, a roar so savage, so filled with fury, that even the alien invaders froze for half a heartbeat. The predator was unleashed. It tore through enemy, soldiers like a living storm, claws ripping armor like paper, jaws crushing bone with brutal force. Each roar sent shockwaves through the smoke, drowning out even the thunder of orbital strikes. The chains that once bound it now lay in molten scraps, and its eyes blazed like molten suns. And through it all, it stayed near him, always near Elias, shielding him, killing for him, fighting as if the universe itself depended on it. Ward! A soldier screamed through the comms, voice cracking with panic. Evac shuttles are gone. They're targeting escape routes. There's no way out. Elias pressed his back against a broken wall, panting hard. His body ached, his skin burned, but his mind was clear, cold, and sharp like a blade. He looked up through the shattered ceiling, where the alien supercarrier loomed like a god of death. Main cannon charging. Impact in 60 seconds. There was no time to run, no time for backup, no miracle waiting in the wings, just him. And the predator? He glanced at the beast as it crouched beside him, blood dripping from its fangs. Its body was torn, glowing wounds burning across its flanks, yet its eyes burned with the same fire as before, the fire of a warrior who would not yield. Elias spoke softly, his voice steady even as the world crumbled around them. You've done enough. You don't have to. The predator growled low, cutting him off. Then, slowly, it lowered its massive head to him. Not in defeat, not in submission, but in something deeper. Respect. It spoke, its voice broken but clear, the words like thunder wrapped in pain. Commander, fight with me. Elias's throat tightened. He placed a trembling hand on the beast's armored skull. Always, his mind raced, they couldn't win on the ground. But maybe, just maybe, they could hit the heart of the monster above. "Can you reach it?" he asked, pointing at the supercarrier looming in the sky like a dark god. The Predator's eyes blazed. It didn't answer with words. It simply crouched low and extended its massive claws. Elias climbed onto its back. His boots locked into the ridges of its armor-like hide. His fingers gripped the spike near its neck as the beast rose to its full, terrifying height. Through the comms, voices screamed at him. "Ward, what the hell are you doing? Abort, that's suicide." But Elias only spoke 2 words. "Open." The roof. The last surviving soldiers hesitated, then blew the charge. The ceiling exploded, revealing the burning sky and the supercarrier hovering like a blade of doom. The Predator roared and leaped. The world blurred. Smoke, fire, wind all ripped past as they soared through the shattered roof like a missile. Of flesh and fury. Enemy drones swarmed to intercept, but the Predator spun mid-air, tearing one apart with its jaws, smashing another with a swipe of its claw. They landed on the carrier's hull with a bone-shaking crash. Steel screamed under the Predator's weight. Plasma cannons turned, spitting fire, but the beast was faster. It ripped a turret from its base and hurled it into another, explosions lighting the sky. Elias clung tight, shouting commands between gritted teeth. "Forward! Tear it open!" The Predator obeyed. With a roar that cracked the heavens, it slammed its claws into the hull, ripping through armor that could withstand nukes. Sparks and fire poured out as the ship's system screamed. Core ahead. Elias yelled, spotting the glowing heart of the ship's reactor chamber. Below it. The Predator lunged, but then came the sound Elias had dreaded. A sharp, sickening crack. The beast's leg buckled. Blood thick and blue gushed from a fresh wound where an energy lance had pierced deep. The Predator roared in agony, but didn't stop. With the last of its strength, it ripped open the reactor chamber, molten light flooding the sky. Alarms howled across the alien fleet. Core breach imminent. Elias slammed his rifle against the reactor, pulling every grenade from his belt. He looked down at the Predator, whose glowing eyes met his one last time. "You'll die," Elias whispered. The Predator made a sound, a rumble that almost sounded like a laugh. Then it spoke its last word. "Win." The grenades detonated. The core erupted in a storm of fire, brighter than the sun. When the smoke cleared hours later, there was no supercarrier, no alien fleet, just silence, broken wreckage drifting in, orbit, and the whispered legend of what happened that day. They said a human rode into the jaws of death on the back of a monster. They said he spoke the enemy's sacred words and made their greatest weapon kneel. But those who were there, those who saw the sky burn, told a different story. They said the Predator didn't die as a slave. It died as a soldier. And at the very end, as a friend, the galaxy would remember the last image burned into their minds. A human, standing atop the ruins of a godship, and a fallen beast glowing in the flames. The end.